My wife called the police and accused me of stealing millions. From my own company. And I didn't stop her. The knock came at 2:07 a.m. Loud. Aggressive. Final. Open the door. I was already awake. Watching the cameras. Watching her stand behind them. Crying on command. He's been hiding money, she said. Forging accounts. I have proof. Proof. That word almost made me smile. Because everything they had. Every document, every transfer, every signature. Was real. Just not what she thought it was. I opened the door myself. No hesitation. No questions. I turned around before they even told me to. Hands behind my back. Cold metal clicked. And she touched my arm. Soft. Careful. Fake. I didn't want this, she whispered. That's when I knew. Not that she betrayed me. But how far she had already gone. I looked at her. No fear. No doubt. Just relief. Like she had already won. Good. That's exactly what I needed. My name is Daniel Carter. And I let my wife have me arrested. Because she had no idea what she had just activated. The first sign wasn't the arrest. It was the paperwork. They processed me fast. Too fast. No hesitation. No questions. Like everything had already been approved before they even knocked on my door. I sat in the holding room. Metal table. Bright light. An officer slid a folder in front of me. Your wife provided everything, he said. I opened it. Statements. Bank transfers. Authorization logs. All under my name. All clean. Too clean. I didn't react. Didn't argue. Because I recognized the structure. Not the data. The pattern. Someone hadn't just accused me. They had built a case. Carefully. Step by step. Months of preparation. I turned another page. A timeline. Every incident listed. Dates. Times. Amounts. It matched perfectly. Perfectly, except for one thing. One transaction. 3 weeks ago. A transfer I supposedly approved at 3:12 a.m. I remember that night. Because I wasn't alone. I was on a recorded call. With a client. That detail wasn't in the file. It couldn't be. Because whoever built this didn't have access to everything. Only enough to make it believable. Not enough to make it true. That's when it shifted. From accusation to construction. I closed the folder slowly. Calm. Measured. The officer watched me. Waiting. Do you understand the charges? He asked. Yes, I said. And I meant it. Not the legal ones. The real ones. Because this wasn't about money. Or fraud. Or even control. This was about replacement. I wasn't being accused. I was being rewritten. My history. My actions. My signature. All replaced with a version of me that would collapse exactly the way they needed. I leaned back in the chair. Closed my eyes for a second. And replayed the last few weeks. Small things. Easy to ignore. My wife asking unusual questions about account access. My stepson suddenly helping with paperwork. A password reset I didn't request. At the time, it felt random. Now it didn't. Now it lined up. Perfectly. I opened my eyes again. And that's when I saw it. Last page. Bottom corner. A digital authorization stamp. My name. My signature. Verified. Time-stamped. But the format was old. 3 years old. I changed it after a breach. No one should have had that version. No one. Except. I stopped the thought. Didn't let it finish. Not yet. Because once I confirmed it, there would be no going back. I placed the folder back on the table. Hands steady. Breathing even. The officer was still watching me. Trying to read something. Fear. Confusion. Guilt. I gave him none. Anything else? I asked. He hesitated. Just for a second. Then shook his head. No. Good. Because now I knew something they didn't. This wasn't complete. It looked perfect. But it wasn't. And incomplete systems always leave traces. I just needed to find them. They moved me out of the holding room an hour later. Not to a cell. To an interview office. That was the second sign. Too much space. Too much silence. No pressure. Just time. Time to think. Time to notice. The officer left the folder on the table. Unlocked. Unprotected. Like they wanted me to look again. So I did. Slower this time. Page by page. Every document followed the same pattern. Clean formatting. Correct language. Proper structure. Whoever built this knew what they were doing. But then I saw it. The approvals. Different departments. Different systems. But the timestamps. Too close. Minutes apart. That doesn't happen. Not in real processes. Not without someone pushing it through. Hard. Fast. From the inside. I leaned back. Connected the first point. Internal access. Then I turned the page. Bank logs. 3 accounts I hadn't used in months suddenly active. Transactions layered. Split. Recombined. Designed to look like movement. Not profit. That's when the third sign hit. This wasn't theft. This was simulation. They weren't stealing money. They were creating the illusion of it. I kept reading. Authorization requests. Approved. Modified. Reproved. All under my credentials. But the pattern was wrong. Too consistent. Real behavior is messy. This was engineered. I closed the file halfway. Thinking. Then I remembered something small. 3 nights ago. My phone locked me out. Just for a moment. Glitch, I thought. It wasn't. It was access. I opened the file again. Looked at the login history. There it was. 2:14 a.m. Remote authentication. My credentials. My device signature. But I was asleep. That wasn't a guess. I don't sleep lightly. And that night. I hadn't woken up once. Which meant one thing. They didn't just use my identity. They controlled it. I exhaled slowly. That changed everything. Because now it wasn't just a setup. It was coordination. Multiple systems. Multiple entries. All aligned. I flipped to the final section. Witness statements. 3 names. Unknown. All claiming I had redirected funds. Same wording. Same structure. Even the same pauses. Like they had been coached. Or worse. Written. I stared at the lines. Read them again. And then I saw it. A phrase repeated in all 3. Identical. Word for word. People don't speak like that. Not naturally. That wasn't testimony. That was scripting. I leaned forward. Elbows on the table. Everything was lining up now. Financial logs. Access points. Fake behavior. Controlled approvals. Scripted witnesses. And right in the center of it. Me. Or the version of me they created. I closed the folder. This time fully. Because I didn't need more. I had enough. Not proof. Not yet. But structure. And structure means intent. I stood up slowly. Walked to the mirror on the wall. Looked at my reflection. Calm. Steady. Unbroken. Good. Because if I looked like I was losing control, they would adjust. And I needed them to keep going. To keep building. To make one mistake. Just one. A knock on the door. Soft this time. The officer stepped in. "Your lawyer's been notified," he said. I nodded. Of course he had. Because that would be the next step. Formal process. Legal pressure. Public record. Everything moving exactly the way they planned. Perfect. That meant they were confident. And confident people. Rush. I sat back down. Folded my hands. Waited. Because now I wasn't reacting anymore. I was watching. And the pattern was almost complete. My lawyer arrived 20 minutes later. Not rushed. Not confused. Calm. Too calm. That was the first thing I noticed. He sat across from me. Placed his briefcase on the table. Didn't open it. Just looked at me. Studying. Like he already knew what I was going to say. "Daniel," he said quietly. "This is serious." I nodded. Of course it was. But not in the way he thought. Or maybe. Exactly in the way he thought. "I've reviewed the file," he continued. "The evidence is strong. Strong. Not convincing. Not questionable. Strong." That word mattered. "Who gave it to you?" I asked. He didn't answer immediately. A pause. Small. Controlled. Then. "Your wife." There it was. Not suspicion anymore. Confirmation. I leaned back slightly. Let that settle. Not the betrayal. The structure behind it. "How long have you had it?" I asked. 2 days. 2 days. Before the arrest. Before the police. Before the knock at my door. That meant everything was already moving. Before I even knew. Or before they thought I knew. I nodded slowly. "Did you verify it?" I asked. Another pause. Longer this time. "I didn't need to," he said. That was the second confirmation. Not just involvement. Alignment. He wasn't defending me. He was processing me. Like the system already had a direction. And he had accepted it. I looked at him. Really looked. No tension. No urgency. Just quiet certainty. That's when the third piece clicked. They didn't just build a case. They controlled the narrative around it. Police. Financial systems. Now legal. Layer by layer. Tight. Coordinated. Deliberate. "Daniel," he said, leaning forward slightly. "The best option right now is cooperation." There it was. Not advice. Instruction. "Sign a preliminary statement," he continued. Admit partial responsibility. We can negotiate from there. Admit. Partial. Negotiate. Every word chosen. Every step leading in one direction. Submission. I almost smiled. Not because it was clever. Because it was familiar. I'd seen this before. Different people. Different methods. Same structure. Break control. Replace identity. Close the system. I reached for the folder. Opened it again. Slow. Measured. Walk me through this, I said. He nodded. Prepared. Too prepared. These transactions, he pointed. They establish intent. These signatures, verification. These witnesses, corroboration. He moved through it smoothly. No hesitation. No doubt. Like he'd rehearsed it. Or been trained on it. I watched his hand. The way it moved. Precise. Confident. Not discovering. Explaining. That's when I saw it. A document I hadn't focused on before. An internal authorization request. Amendment to account control. Secondary access granted. Name redacted. But the approval. Signed by me. Time-stamped. 3 weeks ago. I froze on that page. Not visibly. Inside. Because I remembered something. That same week. My wife asked me a question. Casual. Almost irrelevant. How does secondary access work? I answered without thinking. Explained the process. The safeguards. The verification layers. She listened. Quiet. Focused. Now I understood. She wasn't asking. She was learning. I looked back at the document. And then at my lawyer. You said she gave you this 2 days ago, I said. Yes. But this amendment, I tapped the page. Was processed 3 weeks ago. He didn't respond. Didn't need to. Because now the timeline was clear. This wasn't reactive. It wasn't sudden. It was planned. Step by step. Weeks ahead. Built quietly. Executed cleanly. And finalized with me in handcuffs. I closed the folder again. Slower this time. More deliberate. Because now there was no doubt. My wife didn't just accuse me. She built the system that would replace me. Legally. Financially. Completely. Daniel, my lawyer said softly. We need to act quickly. No. You needed me to act quickly. That was the difference. I looked at him. Calm. Still. And for the first time since he walked in. He hesitated. Just slightly. Enough. Of course, I said. And I meant it. Because now the truth wasn't forming anymore. It was visible. And once something becomes visible, it can be used. Against the people who built it. They let me make one call. Standard procedure. Family notification, the officer said. I already knew who I would call. Not because I needed help. Because I needed to hear it. From her. The line rang once. Twice. Then she answered. Soft. Controlled. Daniel. Not panic. Not fear. Just, readiness. I've seen the file, I said. Silence. Short. Measured. Then. I was wondering how long it would take. No denial. No confusion. Just confirmation. That was the moment. Not the arrest. Not the evidence. This. I trusted you, I said. Not loud. Not emotional. Just fact. Another pause. Then she exhaled. You trusted a version of me that doesn't exist anymore. Clean. Final. Like she had already said it to herself 100 times. Why? I asked. Because I needed to hear her say it. Not for answers. For clarity. At first, she said quietly. It was about security. Security. Not love. Not family. A calculation. You were unpredictable, she continued. Always in control. Always one step ahead. I almost smiled. Because that used to be something she admired. You made everything feel temporary, she said. Like I was living inside your system. Not mine. And there it was. Resentment. Layered. Hidden. Growing. So you built your own, I said. Yes. No hesitation. No shame. Just ownership. I learned from you, she added. How systems work. How to move quietly. How to prepare before acting. Every word hit. Not because it was surprising. Because it was precise. She wasn't guessing. She understood exactly what she had done. And the arrest? I asked. That was necessary. Necessary. Like removing a variable. Like correcting a mistake. You weren't supposed to fight it, she continued. You were supposed to collapse under it. I leaned back in the chair. Closed my eyes for a second. Not to escape. To process. You drugged me, I said. Silence. Longer this time. Then. Yes. Just like that. No apology. No explanation. Just truth. Not enough to hurt you, she added quickly. Just enough to adjust perception. Adjust perception. That's how she framed it. Not control. Not manipulation. Adjustment. I let that settle. Every missed detail. Every moment I thought I was tired. Every time I second-guessed myself. Not random. Engineered. And the money? I asked. That comes after. Of course it did. Because this wasn't just about removing me. It was about replacing me. In the system, she continued. Once the charges are processed, everything shifts. Accounts. Access. Authority. All under legal transition, she said calmly. Legal. Clean. Irreversible. You wouldn't just lose the case, she added. You would lose position. Identity. Control. Everything. I stared at the wall. Not because I was lost. Because now I could see it fully. Every step. Every layer. Every decision. And him? I asked. Because there was always someone else. There always is. A small pause. Then. He helped structure it. Of course he did. Not emotional. Operational. He understood financial systems, she added. That explained the precision. The speed. The coordination. You trusted him? I asked. I trusted the plan. That answer mattered. Not the person. The outcome. That's where she placed her faith. Daniel, she said softer now. You were already gone. Gone. Not physically. Functionally. To her. You just didn't know it yet. I opened my eyes. Looked at the door. Then back at nothing. Because something inside me had shifted. Not broken. Finalized. You know what the worst part is? I asked. She didn't answer. Didn't need to. You didn't rush this, I said quietly. You took your time. That's what made it real. Not impulse. Not emotion. Patience. Planning. Choice. Every single day. She exhaled again. And for the first time. Something changed. Not guilt. Not regret. Something smaller. Uncertainty. You taught me that, she said. I nodded slowly. I did. Silence. Heavy. Complete. No more layers. No more questions. Just truth. Clear. Sharp. Irreversible. I won't fight you, I said. And that surprised her. I could hear it. In the way she inhaled. Sharp. Unplanned. Because that wasn't part of her model. You won't have to, she replied carefully. Carefully. Because now. She wasn't completely sure. I ended the call. Didn't say goodbye. Didn't need to. Because there was nothing left to say. Not between us. Not anymore. I placed the phone down. Hands steady. Breathing even. Because now the betrayal wasn't forming. It was complete. And once something is complete, there's no going back. Only forward. They expected resistance. Lawyers. Calls. Noise. I gave them none. That was the first move. Silence creates comfort. Comfort creates mistakes. They transferred me to a temporary holding office. No restraints. No urgency. Because in their system, I was already contained. I sat down. Looked at the walls. Then at the camera in the corner. Standard. Visible. Expected. Good. Because that wasn't the one that mattered. I leaned back. Closed my eyes. And started mapping it. Not the accusations. The structure. Financial logs. Access overrides. Legal alignment. Medical interference. 4 systems. All connected. All moving in sync. That level of coordination doesn't happen externally. It happens from the inside. Which meant one thing. They weren't just using the system. They had access to it. I opened my eyes. Slow. Calm. And replayed her words. I learned from you. Yes. But not everything. Because I never showed her the failsafes. The parts you don't talk about. The parts you build. For when everything turns. I stood up. Walked to the desk. There was a terminal. Restricted. But active. They didn't lock it. Because they didn't think I needed it. That was the second mistake. I sat down. Entered my credentials. Denied. Of course. Standard lock. But systems don't just have access points. They have layers. I didn't try again. Instead, I accessed something older. Not the main network. The audit layer. Buried. Outdated. Ignored. Exactly where it needed to be. I built it years ago. After a case went wrong. When I realized something simple. If you control the visible system, you don't need to control the hidden one. Because no one looks there. The screen flickered. Then opened. Clean. Untouched. Good. I started with the claim. Pulled every document. Every signature. Every timestamp. Not to read. To mirror. Duplicate. Copy. Secure. Because once data exists in two places, it can't be erased. Then I moved to access logs. Real ones. Not the surface level. The back end. There it was. Every entry. Every modification. Every override. And right in the center. Her. Not directly. Not by name. But by pattern. Repeated access requests. Same origin. Same pathway. Then I saw him. The second signature. External authorization. Pushed through internal clearance. That was the link. Financial structure. Legal coordination. System acceleration. All tied to one point. I didn't react. Didn't rush. Just recorded. Because proof isn't about volume. It's about alignment. I built the file slowly. Piece by piece. Clean. Precise. Then I moved to the final layer. The one no one knows exists. Not even most executives. Contingency. I wrote it years ago. Never used it. Never needed to. Until now. The clause was simple. If a claim is triggered under fraudulent conditions, everything freezes. Then redirects. Not to the claimant. Not to the system. To investigation. Independent. Aggressive. Irreversible. But it requires one thing. Proof. Not suspicion. Not logic. Evidence. And now. I had it. I didn't activate it. Not yet. Too early. If I triggered it now, they would see it. React. Adapt. And I needed them blind. Comfortable. Certain. So I prepared it. Linked every file. Every inconsistency. Every forged entry. Built the case inside the system itself. So when it triggered, it wouldn't question. It would execute. I leaned back. Watched the screen. Everything aligned. Everything ready. Now it was timing. I closed the interface. Left no trace. No indication. Nothing. Then I stood up. Walked back to the chair. Sat down. Hands folded. Calm. The door opened. An officer stepped in. "You're being moved," he said. I nodded. Of course I was. Because from their perspective, everything was proceeding exactly as planned. And that was the advantage. They thought they were ahead. They thought I was reacting. They thought I was losing. They were wrong. Because the moment I stopped reacting, I started controlling. And they didn't even see it. They moved me back home that afternoon. Temporary release, they said. Pending further review. Too fast. That wasn't normal. Which meant the system was already shifting. Good. I stepped inside the house. Everything looked the same. Furniture. Silence. Order. But the air felt different. Tighter. Controlled. My wife was in the living room. Phone in her hand. Waiting. Not worried. Waiting. My stepson stood near the window. Watching me. Not surprised. They expected this. Of course they did. Because in their version, this was the final stage. I didn't greet them. Didn't ask questions. I walked past them. Slow. Calm. That unsettled them. I could feel it. Not fear. Not yet. Disruption. "You're back early," she said. Careful tone. Measured. I nodded. Temporary, I replied. One word. Enough. Silence followed. Heavy. Unstable. Good. I went to my office. Closed the door. Not locked. That mattered. Because I wanted them to listen. To wonder. To doubt. I sat down. Opened the system. Not the hidden one. The visible one. Accounts. Claims. Status. Everything looked normal. Processing. Advancing. Exactly as they expected. But underneath. The flag was active. Invisible. Slowing everything. Quietly. I checked the logs. They were already reacting. Multiple access attempts. Priority escalations. Overrides. Denied. No explanation. That was the first crack. I stood up. Walked back into the living room. My stepson was on the phone now. Voice lower. Sharper. No, it should have cleared by now, he said. There it was. Timing. Breaking. My wife looked at me. Studying. Trying to read something. I gave her nothing. Just calm. Just stillness. What's wrong? I asked. Simple. Neutral. She hesitated. Just for a second. Then. Nothing. Too quick. Too clean. A lie. And now I could see it. Not the words. The structure. They were no longer aligned. He was pushing. She was controlling. Pressure was splitting them. Perfect. I moved to the kitchen. Poured water. Slow. Deliberate. Behind me. Their voices shifted. Lower. Faster. Not calm anymore. Check the documents again, he said. I already did, she snapped. That doesn't make sense. Exactly. It didn't. Because now the system wasn't theirs anymore. Not fully. I turned back. Leaned against the counter. Watched them. Not openly. Just enough. You said this was clean, he added. There it was. Blame. First sign of collapse. It is clean, she replied. But her voice. Different now. Less certain. I took a sip of water. Calm. Measured. And said nothing. That was the second move. Silence under pressure creates noise. They filled it. Fast. We need to push it through, he said. I am pushing it. Then why is it stuck? She didn't answer. Because she didn't know. And that's where control shifts. Not when something breaks. When someone realizes they don't understand why. I walked past them. Back toward the hallway. Paused. Just enough. Then said quietly. Systems don't stall for no reason. Not accusation. Not explanation. Just a statement. I didn't look at them. But I felt it. The shift. Sharp. Immediate. Fear. Not full. Not yet. But present. I continued walking. Returned to my office. Closed the door. This time. Locked. Because now it was time. I sat down. Opened the hidden system. Everything was ready. Every file linked. Every inconsistency mapped. Every access recorded. And right at the center. The contingency trigger. I hovered over it. Calm. No hesitation. Because this wasn't reaction anymore. This was execution. I pressed it. No sound. No alert. No warning. Just a quiet shift. In a system they trusted. Outside. Voices stopped. Completely. Then movement. Fast. Uncontrolled. Footsteps. Doors. Calls. What do you mean frozen? My stepson snapped. I leaned back. Listened. They can't freeze it without review, my wife said. They did. Silence. Heavy. Cracking. Then. Who flagged it? That question mattered. Because now they knew. Something had changed. And they didn't control it. I stood up. Walked to the door. Unlocked it. Opened it slowly. They turned. Both of them. And for the first time. They weren't aligned. Not together. Not certain. What's happening? She asked. Careful. Controlled. But underneath. Panic. I looked at them. Calm. Still. And said. Exactly what should happen. No explanation. No detail. Just truth. Because now the pressure wasn't building anymore. It was breaking. And they were standing right inside it. The call came an hour later. Not to me. To her. Speaker on. She didn't notice. Your claim is under investigation, the voice said. Medical fraud. Document falsification. Identity misuse. Silence. Then. All associated assets are now frozen. Her hand tightened around the phone. My stepson stepped back. Just one step. Enough. Because now they understood. Not everything. But enough. I walked into the room. Slow. Calm. You built a clean system, I said quietly. No noise. No gaps. I paused. Just one mistake. They didn't speak. Didn't move. You assumed I wouldn't see it. My wife's eyes shifted. Not anger. Not denial. Recognition. Heavy. Irreversible. It's all recorded, I continued. Every signature. Every override. Every step. No threats. No raised voice. Just facts. That's all it ever takes. My stepson looked at her. Not aligned anymore. Not confident. Separated. That was the end. Not the system. Them. I turned away. Walked to the door. Stopped. Just for a second. Some plans don't fail, I said quietly. They collapse. I stepped out. Didn't look back. Because control doesn't need witnesses. It needs completion. And this was complete. Thank you for listening. Calm justice doesn't shout. It keeps records.